Hi, I'm Lois Powell. And I'm Susan Schuler, and we're here to share tips, tricks, ideas, and resources to help you discover what's your story.
Hey Lois, how have you been?
I'm terrific, Susan, and how have you been?
Good, good. I'm very excited. We're back with our podcast. It's been a minute.
It's been maybe a minute and a half.
Yes, it has.
So what have you been up to?
Well, I'm currently taking a genealogy class. I'm taking Mastering Genealogical Documentation, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, probably not the sort of thing I'm very good at is documentation.
Well, it's making me better in the long run.
I think all genealogists need to be better in the long run.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of genealogists, I'm very excited today that we have a special guest.
We do. Pretty excited about it myself.
I know. So our guest today is Judi Burr, a longtime friend of the East Lake Library and an avid genealogist. Hi, Judi. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to talk about my journey in genealogy.
We're very excited to hear about it. Can you tell us how you got interested in genealogy?
Well, I really became curious in the 1990s, and that was because I was the executor of my father's sister's estate, and I found a number of pieces of information on my aunt, and I was curious because there was one piece that I went, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. It says that she was married in Virginia. I know she was married in New York. And when I approached my mom went, what? And so I showed her that. She goes, I knew she got married before she actually got married. And so it began this trying to uncover a little. But my mom really didn't want to talk about her family because her dad died when she was 3.
Oh.
Her mom died when she was in her 20s. So there wasn't really a lot that she would talk about on them. So I then was like, come on, tell me about this. And she's like, well, and then she would tell me a little piece of information and that would be it. And so I sort of let it lie for a long time until my mom passed away. And being the executor of her estate, I was able to get little pieces of information, including her telephone directory piece, which then gave me the names of some people that all my life I called Aunt Frances, Uncle Gene. And I never knew whether they were really aunts and uncles because I know how many sisters and brothers were there. So I started then to really say, I'm going to find out about my family.
A lot of mysteries to solve.
A lot of mysteries.
So are you staying focused just on your mom's side, or are you having the problem that most of us have, which is you get excited and try other things?
Oh, definitely tried a lot of things. I had to find out about my dad's side because his father was his father's brother married the sister of my father's mother. So it became, well, this is really interesting. And then to find out where they lived when they first moved over, because being an immigrant coming through Ellis Island, they lived at the tip of the island in a place where I know now there's a church and all of these other things. And I was like, wow, they live there. And I didn't find that until I was no longer working in the Wall Street area. I would have just loved to walk up and down those streets at that time.
So now are you back working on your mom for today? What you're going to tell us about, or whose story you're going to tell us about today?
Probably tell you more about my father's side because yesterday I finally got one piece of information that I had sought for a while.
How long is a while?
A while is over 2 months to get a death certificate for my father's grandmother. She came over in 1929 from Poland after her husband passed away, left 3 of her children in Poland, 3 of them in the States, and she came over. And the piece that I have is I know what her father's name was. I never knew what her mother and her mother's maiden name is. Well, guess what? The death certificate has Catherine unknown. So I'm still in the same quandary, which means I still have to pursue trying to find out other information. But I can't give up on each side because I get one piece on this side and then I hit a brick wall. So then I go back and tackle the brick wall on the other side.
Yeah, so it's not for the faint of heart,
Not
this
at
pursuit. So how long have you been searching for that death certificate before you knew to get it from this place in Michigan?
About a year I had been really searching for that, because it wasn't in Family Search, it wasn't in any of the databases that were clearly, in Ancestry and everything like that. So it became where, and I went to Yale, which is where the county that I knew that she was living in with her daughter, and I couldn't get any response from them. They didn't tell me where to go. And then just doing some research and saying, I'm going to find this, went and found out that Michigan, you can get everything from Michigan State.
So if you're giving somebody some tips here, I guess it's what groups or resources. I mean, how did you figure out some of these things? Who's been helpful in your journey?
The people that have been helping me on my journey, are guys like you. I come in and I ask Susan, I go on the files. The Largo Library has been helpful, but a number of the societies that I belong to will give you hints. It's been one that, I belong to so many at this point. I'm like, okay, which one am I going to go to which conference? But I was mentioning it to one person in a program that I was attending for one of the Polish Genealogy Society of Michigan, who said, try the state, try the archives there. And that's where, going through, I went on and I use Bing as my search engine. I don't use Google because I get frustrated with them. But I went into Bing and I asked the question, of their co-pilot, their AI, and said, where can I get this? And it came up with that.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa. Okay. AI does help, limited, but it does help. I find Copilot a great one for a lot of little hints on things, even in genealogy. It may lead me down the wrong road at the beginning, but it clearly has a lot of good things that if you go through the pieces, you will find information.
And I think as we go forward and AI advances, it's going to help a lot more in the future. It's just still in its infancy stage, if you will.
Yes, I agree.
So would you say Polish genealogy is your main focus right now?
Polish, Ukrainian, and Russian. And the reason for that is the changing borders of Poland. Poland has been ruled by so many different political structures that you have to look at the point in time, and you have to get a map, and you say, I know my grandparents were born in the 1890s. Who was in charge at that point? Because that will give you a hint of which archives you should go into. And a lot of the material is slowly being put on search engines, whether it's Family Search. Some of them are private. When you find out there's one site on Facebook I use, and one of the women on there is actually making the material available. She has been able to get some of the books from the churches. She's gone there, copied them, and now she is transcribing them for major use. Not charging people, but it is very private. You have to know about it to join it. And that's one of the keys to any of the research. Join an organization that is the area that you're interested in. So Polish Genealogy Society of Michigan for me, because my grandparents lived up there. The Polish Genealogy Society of New Jersey, because my grandparents lived there. Connecticut and the New England, because I had some family come in through Boston. So it's really been very, very important for me to look at each of those pieces.
I think you gave me two really good tips. One is all the groups you're joining. I don't know how you stay on top of all of them. But the other is history. The maps and the geography becomes really critical. And a lot of people don't want to spend time on that. But that's knowing your history of the country is really critical. So I think those were great tips. Thank you.
Judi, you've brought up so many important points. I want to just touch on a couple of them. The first one is, how did you find all of these societies? Did you find them all by being in Facebook groups, or did you find them by just researching them or through a friend?
Okay. A lot of them I found through some of the material that I just read. There was one book I read, Stat La. Ooh, I can't remember. It's in the Palm Harbor Library. It's the only one that's out there. Stat Lat. And it's on Polish genealogy, and it got me to some of the sites on Facebook. From there, just asking questions or taking what you found and you can't read and put it on there, they will lead you to a site that does Polish translation, Latin translations. Unbelievable amount for me, because one of the things that I have the difficulty is I don't speak Polish, and the books that are in the churches are either in Polish, Russian, or Latin. Latin, I have a little edge taking 4 years of it in high school, but it's been a long time. But Russian and Polish, I don't understand the Russian alphabet. Polish, I can come close to from some of the, just memorizing the words. So having those. The other, on the groups themselves, they all kind of led me to them. The person who's handling the Facebook site for the one town in Poland that I was interested in. So if you know a town in Poland, look up and see if they have a Facebook page for information on that. That woman heads the Polish Genealogy Society of Michigan and said, why don't you join us? With the pandemic, almost everything is virtual that I want to see. Like the Carpathian, I always have to say that wrong. They do theirs virtual, and I am just so fortunate that there is no way I'm going to get up to Ohio. There's not a chance I'm going to get to Michigan or even go back to New Jersey or in that area. So for me, to be able to connect with people who have been doing this, know the area, and then also will say, I'm going here. Do you want me to see if there's anything on there? I've had just a lot of fortune that I'm seeing that with people.
So, how do you keep yourself organized?
Okay, I have my stuff on Ancestry for my tree. Yes, I can't get any of the documents that are there when I'm not paying for the site, but I also have a very thick book that lists each of the family members and any documentation I have on them. It's all in alphabetical order. The thing that it is I use the family names of those who I have known. So I have the Brand family. So Florian and George and Connie and all of these, I know where they are. As I go deeper sometimes into that section, because I become very curious about a family that I've known and really love, that I then have difficulty, because if someone says, well, what about Gail Frumpet? I have now started to keep that very organized on my computer, and I have a genealogy site, and I have the major name with the breakdown of everybody else. So I'm keeping documents much more organized there besides just printing. My originals stay in my book. So if I get a death certificate, it's there. I'm not going to worry about it on the computer.
And do you also keep, like, I'll call it working documents of here's the questions I can't get answered or I'm still trying to find?
Yes, that's what yes, I have a list of those, and I go through them periodically. And that's why when I hit a brick wall, I go, okay, what were the brick wall questions over there? So
It's a lot of work,
a lot of work.
but you seem to love it.
I love it. I really do. I wish I had more time.
Oh, don't we all, right? What is the most interesting or surprising thing you've discovered so far in your research?
Well,
or is there more than one?
Well, I think there's two things that I think were, for me, very startling. One, I already mentioned about finding the marriage certificate of my father's sister who eloped. And obviously within 3 months got married.
Had a proper marriage.
Had a proper marriage in the Catholic Church.
For the family.
With the family. And my mother was very upset. And my mother was upset because my mother and father were planning their wedding in September, and she got married 3 months ahead when it wasn't planned. So it was little, I always wondered why. I think that one. And then another one is the fact of one of the cousins from Michigan who actually married an individual who was a postmistress on an Indian reservation.
Oh.
And I was like, wow. And it was really doing the research that I found her name, and then suddenly started looking up and found out what she had done. And I was just fascinated that here in the early 1800s, you're on an Indian reservation doing post office, which I found great.
That's interesting.
So what is your biggest frustration? You told us what's the most interesting or surprising. What's the greatest frustration at this point?
The greatest frustration is really trying to capture information, hopefully in the Ukraine area before it's destroyed. They are frantically documenting, putting stuff on computers, copying. Books are being marched out into Austria and Poland. So my frustration is there's probably that one piece that I want that's already destroyed.
Yeah.
There was a lot destroyed in Poland during the war. Things I will never find out because there are no records.
Do you have a plan for your genealogy? Like, do you have a family member that you've inspired that you will give it to? Or is there a museum or a library that you think would be interested in your work? What's your plan for the future of your genealogy?
Well, I'm hoping that while my niece is, both nieces really are not so overly, and they have no children, both of them, that I'm going to try and approach my nephew and see if he is interested. The Michigan group has already said, don't destroy your papers.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you contact us.
Great.
So,
And if you could have dinner with one of your ancestors, who would it be and why?
I would want to have dinner with my mother's father, Paul Kopchak, because I never knew him. My mom really didn't know him since she died at 3. I would like to ask him, why did you come to New York? What was life helping to build the subways in New York City? Because he was killed helping to build that.
Oh.
So when I got his death certificate, what my mom told me was actually true, and I knew what part of the subway he was killed on. So I would really like to just say, tell me about yourself. Tell me about life in Poland.
Well, Judi, I have to tell you, this has been fantastic. And I love even your ending story of what you'd like to talk to somebody about with dinner. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, Judi had so many valid points of ideas of ways for research, and it's been really helpful, I think, for us and our audience. So thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. I've enjoyed myself so much.
Yay.
And everybody, we'll be in touch.
Yeah, definitely. There'll be a new podcast soon.